Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I didn't have a lot of notice for this visit, so I didn't have a lot of time to freak out, so that was great. I want to welcome everybody to Hawthorne today. We're very excited to have so many distinguished visitors, our mayor, Dr. Jackson, Chief McDade, Sybil Madison, and Alderman Tunney, many other dignitaries. My name is Trish Devlantis, and I want to welcome you to Hawthorne. As a citywide magnet school, Hawthorne draws students from all over Chicago. It is our mission to provide them with academically challenging and literacy-rich learning environment that will prepare them to make positive contributions to their community. As a principal here, it is a very exciting morning to see our students in person. I just saw our kindergarten students for the first time in the building ever, and that was a really wonderful moment. Seeing their faces is already a highlight of the year for me. A majority of our parents, including Emily Casey, who should be here. She's here. Oh, she's here, right on cue. Emily Casey, who you will hear from in a moment, or a few moments, had selected for their children to come to school in person as the best model for their child. My team and I have been planning for months for a safe return to school. Today is the first day we have had students in the building in a year. No pressure, but it's gone very well, thankfully, so far. We've completely reimagined what our classrooms look like to allow for social distancing, frequent cleaning and sanitizing. Our parents know to use the health screener, and each morning to strengthen our efforts even more. Quite simply, we are ready. We've been ready for a number of weeks. Even though our classrooms look a little bit different, they haven't lost their magic, as was just evident a few moments ago during our walkthrough. Students will be collaborating with each other and receive personalized instruction from their teachers that will help them become independent thinkers and problem solvers. At the same time, we know we have the responsibility to provide our remote students the same high quality educational experiences. We have some of the best teachers in Chicago here at Hawthorne. They are committed to making sure that in-person and remote students have opportunities to work together, to collaborate, to access the curriculum, to grow academically, and to grow socially. In alignment with our mission and values of high-quality academics in a strong environment. I've appreciated the collaboration, the courageous conversations, and hard work of our faculty during the past year. We have kept in mind the same that we tell our students. When you are challenged, you grow. When you are tested, you figure out what matters. As thrilling as today is, I'm even more excited as it's only the first day of the rest of the school year. Next week, we look forward to welcoming our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, including my daughter, who is an 8th grader at Hawthorne. It is the end of my 11th year as a parent at Hawthorne. We can't wait to see what our students collectively continue to accomplish this year. We remain on the same journey together. Whether our students are in person or remote, we are one community. We recognize that some of our members of this community are remote. They are an equally valued part of this school community. That said, welcoming this group of students back to in-person school is our first step back to normalcy, and it is our hope that we will all be together again very, very soon. To Alderman Tunney, thank you for the partnership and support since I first signed my contract. My chief, my boss, your advice and counsel has been very important to me. I'm still only going into my 4th year of my principalship. To Mayor Lightfoot, Dr. Jackson, Chief McDade, I understand servant leadership, although on a much, much smaller scale than you do. I understand the challenges and the sacrifices involved in balancing the needs and wants of a myriad of stakeholders while staying true to the vision. I understand that the right decision and the difficult decision are often the same decision. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you've done for our kids. Thank you for making this moment possible. Last but not least, all of us who want to do this work well do not walk this walk alone. My team, who has been with me since day one of the closure and been in school every single day for 1 year, security, facilities, lunchroom, front office, and my AP, Ryan Pete, your commitment and your understanding that every student is all of our students inspires me every day. On that note, I'd like to welcome Mayor Lightfoot to the podium to say a few words. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Principal Devlantis, for the wonderful tour and for everything that you and your team have been doing under very challenging circumstances. It really is an absolute pleasure to join all of you today to celebrate our latest step in our CPS reopening. This morning I was lucky enough once again to experience firsthand the infectious excitement of our young people on their first day in class. And let me just depart from my prepared remarks to tell you a little bit about what I saw. Driving here this morning, I saw young kids skipping ahead of their parents with excitement about coming back to school. And that really got me going. And then here in the building itself, I spoke with one young second grader and said, what are you hoping for today? And he said, well, I really want to make some new friends. And then we saw a class of kindergartners who literally are in a school for the very first time. And a level of excitement, enthusiasm was just simply off the charts. This is exactly what we fought for. This is the moment that we knew would be possible and important in the lives of our young people and our students. And that's why this giving parents an option to come back in person for their students is so important, and more to come. Now, we have a lot of people to thank in making this moment possible. And of course, elected leaders like Alderman Tunney, who is with us today. CPS parents like Emily Casey, who you'll hear from, and the mother of 3 students here at Hawthorne, as well as CPS CEO Dr. Janice Jackson, Chief Education Officer LaTanya McDade. And let me just pause for a moment and say this. Both of these women have been championing equity and making sure that we never lose sight of what we should be about, and what our mission is about is educating and nurturing and supporting our students. That is key, and they have made sure that we remain focused on that one central mission. Let me thank again Principal Devlantes, as well as all the teachers and staff here at Hawthorne. We saw a lot of excited teachers and classroom aides who were excited to welcome students back today. And we know that teachers really across the system have put in countless hours getting their classrooms ready for in-person learning. And for the countless hours that teachers have devoted to our kids throughout this school year while they were fully remote, we say, again, thank you. I also want to take a moment to give appreciation to our parents. I can say, as a parent of a school-age student, when schools closed a year ago, none of us thought it would be yet another year. We thought and hoped, excuse me, it would be weeks. Then we thought it would be months. And then we thought surely by the start of the school year that we'd be back. But fate had another plan. And I know that there are parents out there across our city who have struggled. And this weight of homeschooling has really fallen disproportionately on a lot of women who have had to sacrifice a tremendous amount that we're learning, that we're getting the homework done, getting the projects done. And I've witnessed this firsthand in my own house, and I know that this has been a challenge for our parents. And I want you to know that while it may not have seemed like it at times, we do hear you. We do hear you. And we will continue to listen and make sure that your voices are part of this equation. This isn't a struggle between two sides. This is a struggle for the fate of our children, to make sure that all of our young people, regardless of where they are, what their background is, what zip code they live in, have the same opportunity to learn and thrive and grow in a system that is supporting them, because it is our most important obligation as leaders and as residents of the city, is to make sure that we clear a way and a path for our young people to be connected to supports that they need to be able to grow. And obviously, parents are an essential part of that mission and that work, and we need to do more, and I'm here to say that we will do more to make sure that parents are brought into this conversation and that their voices are uplifted and highlighted as we continue on in our mission to protect and support our young people. Now, a key feature of that effort, of course, has been our educators. whether they be here at Hawthorne or across the city. And it has been them, our teachers, our principals, our staff, and again, I'm going to emphasize our staff, who have never left our buildings, and other administrators who've been doing the Lord's work for our students, keeping our young people, the very future of our city, not only educated, but engaged and loved. So once again, I'd like to give a shout out to everybody in the entire school community for the work that's been done. And let me talk for a moment about how the physical space of the school is different now, as it must be. As you know, CPS has spent $100 million over the course of the spring, summer, and fall to make sure that our classrooms were ready for in-person learning. And you see that manifest in the classrooms themselves. Socially distanced, making sure that every classroom has every possible supply that they need, from masks to hand sanitizers to wipes, the HEPA filters that have been in classrooms, and making sure that we are following not only the CDC guidelines, but we're following the learning from other school systems in Chicago that have successfully reopened and been open for months. And we're doing just that. Let me also add that as of last week, CPS has offered vaccination opportunities to almost 18,000 of its employees, and more to come. So folks, this is a big day for our students, for their families, and for our whole CPS family and our city on our journey through recovery. I've said this before and I'll say it again, it's really important. Our recovery means more than just our economic recovery. Now, our economic recovery is also important, but our recovery also must be about what is in the best interest of our young people and our students, who also have borne the weight of these closures and everything about COVID-19, which has upended their lives as well. We can't truly recover as a city if we're not thinking about the stress and the burden that has been on our young people. And we need more conversations about that particular issue. Trauma amongst our young people is real. Depression, feeling of isolation is real. And that's why making sure that they get to the supports that they need is a critical mission, not only for CPS, but for our entire city, to make sure that our young people get through this experience and are stronger and the better for it. And I'm committed, as are all of these leaders across the city, committed to making sure that we do just that. And with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Jackson to the podium. Dr. Jackson.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. And I also want to thank Principal DeVlantis for the tour today, that remarkable speech this morning, reminding us of all of the hard work and those people who helped us get to today. I want to start by acknowledging my team, and Chief McDade, who's also been acknowledged already, is here today, our Chief Education Officer, who's been my partner throughout this process in getting us here today. There are so many things to be excited about. Seeing kids back in school for the first time after a year is something that warms my heart. I'm actually a little overwhelmed right now just seeing that here today. And like Tricia, looking forward to next week when my daughter gets to go back to school, because she is definitely counting down and holding me accountable to that date. So March 8th will happen. You know, I think that, you know, when we were riding up today, hearing the students outside, just joyous laughter, things that we just haven't heard in a long time because school has been closed and we haven't come together, is just something that reminds us of why this was so important. And as Tricia pointed out, we're going to recapture the magic in our classrooms, the magic that our teachers sparked during remote learning and will continue to spark for those students and families that have selected a remote learning option. But it shouldn't be lost on us that this has been a year in the making. As Mayor Lightfoot pointed out, when we first embarked on this, we thought it was going to be 2 weeks, then 2 months. And you could not have paid me to believe it would be a year. I don't know what I would have done if you would have told me it was a year last year, to be honest with you. But we're here today, and we're here because people came together, whether it was easy, you know, it wasn't an easy process, but people came together, and throughout this entire process, the goal has been the same for everybody. How do we educate our students and do it safely? We're here today. We've demonstrated that we have planned. The preparation is apparent. Now it's time to do the hard work. There are schools just like Hawthorne across the city that are ready to go. We've spent the last few months making sure that we've thought about every single scenario. But it's the first day of school, and like the first day of any school year, we're going to be troubleshooting and making sure that everything is done properly for our students. But I know I speak on behalf of the parents across the city, all of who now have a choice, whether that's remote or in person, that we're doing what's best for their children. This is the first step on the road to normalcy, whatever the new normal will be. We are going into the recovery phase, and this is a very important phase, not just for the city as a whole, but more importantly for our children and their future, which is something that I've never lost sight of throughout this process. I want to make sure parents know that we are working on our plan to bring high school students back. We will begin meeting with CTU this week. We're really excited about that. There will be more details forthcoming about what those meetings are going to look like, but I think we have a common goal of seeing our students return to school this year, and I want to assure all of our parents of high school age students who continue to email me and the mayor on a regular basis that we are working on a plan, and we will spend our time talking about how we open schools safely. We spent enough time talking about whether or not schools should reopen. The focus now is on how we do it and how we do it safely for our high school students, so more to come on that. But today is a huge step forward. We count this as progress. We count this as a celebration. It is one milestone along a long journey, but I think it's a very important milestone, one that I'm grateful to have the opportunity to lead CPS through. And with that, I want to invite, I told her she's going to be the most important speaker today, Emily Casey, who is a parent of 3 students here at Hawthorne. And the reason I said that is because no one has, no one cares more about their child's future than their parents. And we've heard from parents throughout this process, and parents with differing views about what our reopening plan should look like, when it should happen. But throughout this process, it's been about giving everybody an option. So I want you to hear from a parent who is selected in person for her 3 children. Ms. Casey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Good morning. My name is Emily Casey, and I am the parent of 3 Hawthorne students. As my family was preparing this weekend for the return to in-person school, almost exactly a year since quarantine started, something I thought about was the fact that this is truly a milestone year for each of them. My youngest is in 3rd grade, so this is his last year where his classroom is on the 1st floor. At Hawthorne, moving up from the 1st floor is an exciting rite of passage, right there with winning our annual raffle contest, and it symbolizes finally being part of the older half of the students rather than the younger ones. My middle child is in 5th grade, so this is her final year in middle school before she starts junior high. And this is an especially important year, as others behind me have mentioned, for my oldest, an 8th grader who will be returning next week to finish her 9th and final year as a Hawthorne Hurricane. Well, COVID has taken away a couple of the very special 8th grade milestones, such as Yellowstone, DC trips, her special times in the 8th grade circle. I am very grateful that my daughter will be able to finish up the last 3 months or so in person. She has developed into the person that she is through the cherished relationships made here with her classmates, teachers, and staff here at Hawthorne. In fact, all 3 of my kids are extremely excited to be back at Hawthorne to learn alongside their friends again. I think that speaks to the incredible sense of community that has been cultivated here at the school. Principal Devlantis, Mr. Pete, the staff, and the teachers have all put the students first. That can clearly be seen by how they have carefully prepared to welcome our students back. As I helped my kids pack their backpacks, and we figured out what we would need and what we wouldn't need, I reflected on how this year has been different while remote. I wouldn't say the sense of community has been lost during remote learning, but there is definitely so much more to gain by being back in person at Hawthorne. As a mom, I've enjoyed spending more time with my kids at home this past year, but I think now is the right time for them to get back into the routine of getting dressed, brushing their teeth, adding more structure to their day, and of course, benefiting from the focus of in-person instruction along their peers. Like I said, this is a milestone year in my family, achieving a lot of smaller ones each and every day, and the biggest milestone, the 8th grade graduation for my daughter in June. While there can be gratification in reaching a milestone in isolation, reaching a big milestone, a life event, in the company of the people who helped you get there, that is what education is all about. I am really grateful that we are back together here at Hawthorne. Thank you, and I'd like to turn the podium over to Alderman Tunney.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Casey, and all the people I share the stage with. My name is Tom Tunney, the alderman in this great community of Lakeview, and I've been alderman now for 18 years, and the biggest sense of success has been the growth and success of our public schools. So while Hawthorne has been a magnet school for many years, our other schools, especially Blaine and Nettlehorst, Agassiz, which will have a new name soon, and Inter-American. Back in the day, there wasn't the investment in local public schools in Lakeview. So I can't tell you how excited I am to be here and to welcome the children back with our mayor and our Ms. Jackson and her team. I was out over the weekend and I felt like school was already back because the playgrounds were full, the turf fields were full, and everyone was just so excited to get back in the classroom. And I know there are parents that are waiting, but it seems to me in my neighborhood that attendance, I think, is going to be very, very, very strong. We have fielded a lot of calls about getting our schools open ASAP, safely, of course. And I think the plan that our educators have put forth remedies that, and I hope that parents really, really take a look at the safety protocols and the advantages, as Mayor Lightfoot said, about getting out of the house and interfacing with your students and with your school community. You know, the last time I think I was in this room, I think I was speaking to the graduation class, you know, at Hawthorne. I think I make it an annual event with my schools. So it's exciting. We do it Zoom. If we're going to do it Zoom, we're going to do it. But I have to give credit to our parents in our community that are anxious. They're ready to put their kids back into school. And as Mayor Lightfoot is, they're jumping ahead of their parents. And you know, we'll start to see the congestion around schools at drop-off time. And that's a good problem to have. So congestion in Lakeview has always been pretty much there. And not only do I hope our schools are back, I hope we get our theaters back and our restaurants back at capacity, and of course Wrigley Field. So we're super excited about the opportunity that post-COVID and hopefully with the vaccines being readily available, that people get some sense of normalcy back, as Chief Jackson has said. So it's going to be a new post-COVID world, but I think we're going to be stronger and more resilient, and I'm going to be part of that resurrection, I hope. So thank you all, and I think we're open for questions. So thank you, and have a great day.
You don't have to leave the podium, Tom. You can take it.
No.
I stand ready, Mayor.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Can you but can you identify yourself? It's hard to see you. Okay.
Yep.
Dr. Jackson, we heard during the school board meeting last week from the head of the district's principal worried that, according to him, more than 70% of principals have concerns about staffing. There was some coverage over the weekend in which principals said that they worry if some of their staff or teachers go sick this week, they might be forced to combine pods or even combine classrooms.
Yeah.
Can you share some numbers on where we stand with staffing and accommodations for teachers and staff, and what are you doing to address these concerns?
Yeah, I think as of this morning, we're about at 6,000 accommodations, but we'll get you the exact number so we can report on those properly. But again, you know, throughout this pandemic, we have had to implement plans and be extremely flexible, and so we expect that same level of flexibility will need to happen now that we've opened our doors. I want to talk a little bit about what led up to today. We have a district-wide dashboard where we're tracking readiness across a number of different metrics, and so we feel very confident that our schools are ready to open. We have had to address individual concerns in some schools where maybe there were more accommodations than the principal anticipated that made it so that schedules would be, you know, different than what would be ideal. But we're working through those one-on-one. Like I said, it's the first day of school and you're going to always have challenges. But I feel confident that our schools are ready to open. Again, I've been studying this across the district, looking at other school systems, looking at schools that are open right here in Chicago. In the preparation, the resources that we put in place to reopen schools, I think is unmatched. And so we will address those issues as they arise, but I feel confident with our staffing plans. Right now, we have hired over 500 cadre subs. We're still working towards that goal of 1,000. We're closer to meeting our goal of the 1,000 miscellaneous employees. I don't have that exact number here, but we're moving closer on that, and we're going to be doing hiring fairs and some more amplification of those positions throughout the week. But we feel confident that we'll get it done. We also are going to make sure we continue our aggressive effort around vaccines, which the mayor highlighted in her remarks. We have offered vaccines to over 17,000 employees, which represents more than a third of our staff. So we think that we're going to continue to do that at a really impressive clip. And the more we offer those vaccinations, we'll be able to bring people back, and I think that's going to strengthen our staffing plan. So it is a process, but I believe we're going to get through it. And we got strong principals like Principal DeVlantis throughout the city who are making it work, along with our teachers.
While you're there, obviously, Mary Ann Hager
Yes.
from NBC. Could you tell us about the vaccinations? How's it going? How many have been vaccinated? What's going to even happen this week? How's that going along?
Yeah, so we, as I said, we've offered about 17,750 last I checked. You know, last week at the board meeting, we passed a board rule which will allow us to inquire and ask people to disclose whether or not they've been vaccinated. So I don't have the number of individuals that have been vaccinated just yet, but we're going to be collecting that very quickly. We know that thousands of teachers and staff have been vaccinated through the CPS process, but we also know some of them have taken advantage of that through their primary care physicians, and so it is a process to now ask people. We're gonna survey them, but we'll post those numbers as soon as we get them. Okay.
We'll get you a mic.
All right. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about wanting to get back for high schoolers, but how realistic is it? There was a lot of pushback in even getting the elementary ones back. Many people have sort of given up hope that high schoolers are going to return before next fall.
Well, I don't want people to give up hope that high schools won't return. If that happens, I definitely won't be satisfied. I think that with the first process, we've learned a lot. I said this earlier, but I think we spent more time talking about whether or not schools should open or not. I think we're past that. We reached an agreement with CTU, which is a model that's being used now throughout the country. And I also think the CDC guidance has made it clear that schools can reopen. So I think we've moved past that debate, and now it really is about what does it take in order to have in-person instruction in the high school, which is more complicated than in the elementary school. But we're going to have principals at the table, high school teachers at the table, so there are going to be more people who actually work in high schools now, not people like me who worked in high schools years ago, talking about what some of the challenges are so that we can safely reopen our high schools. But our goal is to see our kids back this year, and that's how we're going to start the conversation with CTU this week.
Dana Kozlov with CBS2, piggybacking on Craig's question about high schools. Are you going to these talks with a total blank slate, or do you have some ideas as to whether you might stagger the return? Because some schools, like my daughter's high school in particular, is huge.
Yeah.
So is there talk maybe the underclassmen won't go back? You know, are you going with a blank slate, or do you have some thoughts as to how to bring back students in
Yeah.
these huge schools?
Well, I think we have a framework for reopening with the agreement that we have with CTU now. I think the big issues around health protocols, et cetera, those things have been worked out. As far as the logistics on reopening, that's going to vary across the district. There are some schools where everybody could come back. You know, they're underutilized. We can socially distance, do social distancing to a certain degree. But there are larger schools where it's going to be much more difficult, which is why we have to bring high school principals that represent different types of schools to the table, because the challenges are unique. Having run a high school, I know it's very difficult to move students around, and that's something that we have to take special care in as we bring them back into the classroom during the pandemic.
I'm Adriana Cardona with WBEC. During the reopening negotiations for elementary schools, parents felt like extremely alienated from the conversation. Now, teens, high schoolers, and parents too want to be included. What are you doing to make sure that their voices are also part of this conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. As Chief McDade pointed out in our board meeting last week, we're going to be doing a much better job, especially with our high school students who are older. So that'll look like surveys with students, you know, having more opportunities for town halls to hear from parents. I think even with the elementary school, there are a lot of different opinions about this. So we did our very best to listen to people and to hear. But one thing I've learned about COVID is that there's no shortage of different opinions around how to do this safely. And so we'll continue to implement some of those mechanisms, but we definitely will do more to hear from our parents and our high school students.
It's similar to what Myla was asking at the beginning. So what will you tell principals then who just simply don't have the staff right now to staff some of their classrooms? Are they just going to have to call central office?
Yeah, we don't have any schools that don't have the staff to open. We have schools that are experiencing challenges, and like I said, we're working through those. Those schools are being prioritized for the cadre positions that I mentioned earlier, miscellaneous positions. I should also note that we have deployed hundreds of individuals from central office out to these schools, and they will be there until we can, you know, ensure that there is a replacement and make sure that the situation is stabilized. But we don't have any schools that can't open due to staffing. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, the interview, so sometimes.
Why don't we get him a microphone?
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So while we're sitting here today, there are obviously a ton of students. The majority of the district is still at home and remote learning. And a lot of students have talked about what you're mentioning, the mental health aspect of being at home. Obviously, returning to school is one way to address that, but as families aren't comfortable to come back yet, what are some other options the district is looking at to address the mental health concerns of students staying at home?
Yeah, well, we've tried to do telehealth opportunities, for example, for our kids with social work minutes, kids who want to have access to their guidance counselors, et cetera. And I think that has worked for some students, and I think for other students, parents still have a lot of concerns. The data is clear across the country, not just here in CPS, that this has been a very isolating experience for students. And, you know, there are some things that I think we can attempt to do in a remote environment, but I also think that there are some barriers that we have to acknowledge, which is why it's been important to get our kids back into school. We're going to continue to do our very best. Chicago Public Schools has prioritized social emotional learning as part of our academic program, and I think it's a big part of the success that we have experienced as a district. But let's not be confused that the pandemic has set us back in many ways, and so the first step again is giving every parent an option. Now principals who've been doing an amazing job trying to reach kids that have been disengaged, they can now offer parents an option to come back into the building. Even if they don't want to come back for school, they can come back and get those social work minutes in person if the social worker is on site. So I think we have more options for families who may be struggling and students who may be struggling in this environment.
Jackson, if parents see this, how well it's going and things are changing and people are getting vaccines, can they jump in at some point?
Well, we will be putting out the survey for the fourth quarter. That's the magical question. I know principals have been getting those emails. I have too. So this is what we know from other school systems that have reopened. You start out with a percentage not different from CPS, around 20-25% of families opting in. And then as people see, there's a kind of a wait and see approach. They want to see the protocols. They want to see that kids aren't getting sick. They want to see that there aren't outbreaks, that people are implementing things things properly, then it increases over time. And so we should expect something like that in CPS. We're going to be putting our survey out for fourth quarter in the coming weeks, and I fully anticipate a huge jump in the number of parents who opt in. But again, the importance is that there's an option. If people aren't comfortable, by all means, they should continue with remote. But if people want to take a wait-and-see approach, ask questions. We're going to be showcasing, the mayor has asked that we showcase what we're doing so parents can become more comfortable. We're going to be doing that over the next couple of weeks so that people can make an informed choice.
All right, let's do a few more. Could I ask the principal one more question? Yeah. Sorry, thank you. How many of your students are here today? How many have signed up? And then could you also just walk us through what is the day like? What is it different? Is everybody here 5 days a week, all day? What goes on now? If you could take your minute, if you don't mind.
Sure. I want to start out by saying I don't answer these questions for a living, so I just want, let me just manage everybody's expectations before we start. We do update our numbers daily at Hawthorne, so I just want everybody to hear that. That said, I don't want to misspeak. So it is over 50%. I don't know what exactly the number is, so I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to get to say that. The day is like. So the day is similar to you know, we have all the same academics we always have, right? We're about strong core academics at Hawthorne. We always have been, we always will be. That's part of the mission. So we have our full reading block, you know, 90 minutes of reading, 90 minutes of math, an hour of science. Our teachers have done an amazing job of doing lab science on Zoom, on Google Meet. And so now we are able to, you know, have some students in person for that while some students are at home. So it, you know, the curriculum's the same. That doesn't change. And we really carried the torch for strong curriculum throughout this process, and that's important to me, that's important to our teachers. So some changes, yeah, we have staggered entry, staggered dismissal, so sometimes we have students maybe starting 15 minutes later. We may have students leaving 15 minutes earlier. Those tend to not be the same students, right, because we want to maximize the minutes that they are getting their instruction. We have planned bathroom breaks. Obviously, there's time for emergency bathroom breaks. Everybody can go to the bathroom if they need to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to, yeah, so just those things. But we're maximizing instructional time like we always do. That hasn't changed. So. Kindergarten here is 4 days a week, and that was based on the space that we had, so we were able to offer it, the space of the room. The other rooms, although we felt we probably had the space, we wanted to kind of ease into it and test our systems. Today is the first day. We don't have pre-K at Hawthorne. We don't have cluster at Hawthorne. This is the first day we have welcomed students to this building in a year. It's gone well, so I feel great about fourth quarter. I know we're going to have a rush. I've already received a ton of emails, and so I just feel great, and I didn't want to do that to our first and second. I really wanted all primary back 4 days. I know our parents did. Our teachers were on board. We kind of felt like we wanted to ease into it. Kindergarten, those teachers were great sports. We're offering that 4 days. Those parents were really, we heard them loud and clear. They have struggled mightily. The youngest students, and then like Dr. Jackson said, the mental health struggles mainly for us in our middle school. It's been tremendously challenging. I'll say that as a parent of an 8th grader. I'll say that having been a middle school teacher, and it's been very disheartening for me as the principal to try to manage that over the last year and see that with our students. So I'm glad that our parents have that choice. I'm glad our students have that choice.
So it is in person, other than the kindergarten 4 days a week, is it in person 5 days a week?
No, it's in person. We're hybrid, the rest of the building. So the rest of the building is generally hybrid, so it's 2 days. Your student, if you opt in, your student comes to school Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. So that's the model. The model is, unless your child is in kindergarten where we've offered 4 days, it's Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. And we tried to accommodate siblings, all those other things. It was a logistical nightmare. My next job, I'll never leave CPS, but I can do logistics, I can do crisis management, and maybe communications, but I don't know if I'm as great as that as these people. So I'm good now. I'm leaving the podium.
Mayor, this is an off-topic question. Do you know if the Johnson...
So I was about to say this is the best press conference ever, right? And now you're asking me a question. Come on now.
Leave it to me. Will the Johnson & Johnson vaccine be in Chicago starting tomorrow? And if so, do you know how many doses the city will be getting?
We anticipate that it will be here, if not today, tomorrow. I don't have a firm lock on what the amount of doses is, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we do expect it here this week. And obviously, we will put it to work as soon as we get it. CDPH has been preparing now for some time, as we saw the Johnson & Johnson vaccine kind of moving through the regulatory approval process, and it gives us obviously another tool to use to get people vaccinated. So we're excited for that opportunity.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I'll give you the last one. Go ahead. Don't make me regret it, Craig.
You usually do.
Yeah, I know I will, though, but go ahead.
The vaccination site over by the United Center, is there
Yeah.
any details yet on how people can sign up? And if also, before I let you go, if you could comment at all about the apparent suicide of the officer in the 19th District.
Look, I don't have a lot of details yet about the officer who apparently took his life in the 19th District. We'll be getting more details as the day goes on, and obviously out of respect for the individual's families and colleagues, I don't want to comment a lot about it. Look, the sad reality is that trauma and depression are with us all the time. And unfortunately, that has been exacerbated through the pandemic for a host of reasons. I don't know about this individual's particular circumstances, but what I know from looking at the data very, very carefully, that suicides are up. Suicides are up in Chicago. Unfortunately, we need to make sure that we destigmatize depression and trauma, that we emphasize for folks the array of resources that are available across the city. We placed a premium on making sure that the city was doing a better job in providing those resources at the neighborhood level. Dr. Arwady and I announced our new neighborhood focus plan back in the fall of 19. And way before we knew that we were going to be in a pandemic, but make no mistake about it, this pandemic has taken an incalculable toll, and particularly on people's mental health. So we want to make sure that people reach out, call 311, call 911. There's an array of services that we offer as a city to safeguard your privacy and your security. But if you are feeling suicidal, please reach out. You are not in this by yourself. And we'll find out more details around the officer, but what I can just say is our heart breaks as a city for that person, for family, and certainly for the members of the department, not only in the 19th District, but this is something that will resonate across law enforcement here in Chicago. And I've forgotten the first part of your question. United Center. No more details yet, although I will tell you that we have been hard at work since we knew that this opportunity was coming about a week to 10 days ago. Our team worked diligently over the weekend with the county and the state and with FEMA to nail down the specific details, and we hope to be providing more information about not only what vaccine will be used, the number of cars, how we're getting seniors to and from the location, but all the logistical information is coming, I think, and moving along nicely, and we'll have more details about that and when people can start signing up to use that particular facility. As I said on Friday, March is senior month. We need to do everything that we can to support our seniors. We've got about a third of our seniors that have been vaccinated in Chicago and across Cook County, but we've got about 250,000 more in the city that we really need to bring the vaccine. Either bring them to the vaccine or bring the vaccine to them. So we've got a lot of work that's being focused around that issue. We'll have toolkits that can be used by community leaders, community-based organizations. It's critically important that we get our seniors vaccinated. We know that for every senior that we vaccinate, we're saving a specific number of lives. They are the most important folks to get vaccinated, in part because they're most vulnerable. They have underlying conditions, and we save lives by vaccinating our seniors. That's why March is SOS, Support Our Seniors Month. So thank you all.